In mine, I'm David Leventhal. This is Sarah Brightwood from Rancho La Puerta. Do you want to start the little video there? We wanted to start with kind of some slides showing the history of the place and how it got that way. And while they're getting that slide going, you know, some of the things that I really enjoyed from our conversations and what I've gotten from this event so far is listening to Martin talk about his love of this place. And I think we're going to get to the love of your place as well. And what I also heard was that growth is inevitable, right? And that is something you're going to see in your case as well, in your example. And the one quote that I got from Juan Carlos that I loved also was, our role in protecting and sustaining the resources that sustain life. And I think we're going to cover that as well, and kind of our role as being good stewards in those places that we're at.
Absolutely.
Okay, so do we have the slides? Yes, we're rolling. So, you know, I want you to tell me a little bit about kind of your growing up in this place. We have the video, yes? Yes, here we go. You know, and I think we're going to end with what you guys have become this model for what is wellness, what is a place to heal. But tell me about kind of how your parents got here. You were born there, you grew up here, you were...
Yes, my parents arrived at Rancho La Puerta when there was absolutely no infrastructure there at all. In 1940, there were Jewish refugees, from my mother from Brooklyn, my father from Europe. And he was an author, philosopher, and visionary. And he was the magnet. He was the reason to come. People came to heal. They came to transform their lives. And he was a master teacher, lecturer. And so many of the health trends that we live in today, he was already talking about in the 1930s. It's extraordinary how I see the validation of both his worldview, the necessity to have a connection with nature, a very important alignment with your spiritual self, with the cosmos, with the land, and then purpose in life.
And, you know, what we're seeing with these slides is how absolutely beautiful the place is. Tell me kind of about your role as steward, as listening to place.
Yes, so I studied landscape architecture and horticulture. I created the organic farm in 1984 that you're seeing in some of these slides, and designed most of the gardens at Rancho La Puerta and some of the buildings. And all of that was done by listening to place. It was that the spirit of the place designed Rancho La Puerta. I just listened.
So, you know, part of what we see with so many touristic locations is what attracts people to it is something special about it. It's the ocean, it's a mountain, a river, it's the nature, it's the beauty of it. At the same time, that beauty that attracts, and we've seen this growth from, has these negative impacts, which we will get to. Talk a little bit about, you know, what you've preserved through your work.
So I grew up here. I'm really a child of this place. I grew up at the foot of a sacred mountain called Mount Cuchuma. And the name of the mountain comes from the Kumeyaay language, Kushma'a, or the place of vision, the place of dreams. So that act of listening, that act of sending your antenna out into the world to receive instructions from a cosmos much greater and wiser and more intelligent than you, is part of how this happened. It happened slowly over time. It happened with great intention. There's a concept called the genius loci. It's a Latin term from ancient Rome, and it means the prevailing spirit of the place, belonging to that prevailing spirit of the place, consciously supporting the character of the place rather than bringing foreign elements into a particular location. So for us, it was really understanding what were the magical things about this land. What as we evolved with the land, what did it teach us about living in partnership with the ecosystem? So we needed to know when the winds came, when the fires came, when the rains came, when the floods came. We needed to understand the path of the sun across the sky in winter and summer. We needed to know when the swallows came and left, and when the egrets came and left, and the foxes that would have babies on the patios of guests, and welcoming the wild and giving the wild its place. Planting a lot of native plants, really recognizing the beauty of the native landscape, and planting eco-equivalent plants, caring for our soils. A lot of this talk is going to be about caring for water. As we see, it's a very essential.
So I want to ask you, all that's well and good, but how is it good for business? I mean,
so we're on our third generation of guests. We have incredible guest loyalty, like no other place that I've ever been. So the people that are the adults now coming to the ranch, many of them came with their parents or their grandparents, and they bring their children in turn. And we are their happy place. They say it's like coming home to grandmother's house. We're where they come to when they are in transition, in distress, in grief and loss, and in celebration. So the one time in the year where all the sisters gather together, where the mother takes her daughter for her college graduation, we become such an embedded part of the family's cultural and spiritual life, right, that they bring their ashes when they die and ask them to be scattered on the mountain.
Well, the other part that I wanted you to touch on as well was, how does that relate to you from a competitive standpoint?
So you can see in this slide our competitive positioning. We've been voted the #1 international spa for many, many years. And that really comes from the loyalty of our guests. We do have an active marketing department, but I think the guests are the ones that really tell our story the best. My mother used to say that a guest would go home and everyone would think, oh, you've had a facelift, or you look amazing, where have you been? And it's just, they've been to the ranch.
Right. Yeah. And I guess part of that is other people try to copy you, but what is it that they can't copy about you?
I think it's the quality of service and connection, that place where we really walk our talk. And we've been there for such a long time. We're embedded in the local community. As we have 3 generations of guests, we have 3 generations of employees. And we have had an enormous impact on the community. I would say that another aspect is the philosophy of my father, which still guides us. Something that connects us to the land and connects us to the cosmos. I heard the word mystical tourism for the first time this morning. So I think we're a blend of wellness tourism and mystical tourism.
Yeah, and I would kind of argue that what I heard from you in our early conversations is a connection to what is really special about that place. And I think you talked about that, and those are the things other people can't copy, is how you have, you really connect people to place through the experience that is Rancho La Puerta.
And we believe that nature heals. Connection with nature heals.
All right, that's all the good stuff. But then there's the growth. And I want to go to the next slide. And I want you to tell me, what you've experienced having been born there and grown there and seen the change in the community.
So when my parents first arrived, we used to swim. Not me, I wasn't born yet. They used to swim in the river. Our guests swam in the river. There were no swimming pools at the ranch. By the time I was a child, the river was full of waste, mostly from the brewery in Tecate. Tecate was a village of 2,000 when my parents arrived in 1940. It was still a village of 8,000 when I was a child. By the time I graduated from high school, went to college and came back, it was a city of 75,000. So in my brief lifetime, up to being like 22 years old, Tecate transformed. Tecate was such a safe place. You knew where everyone came from. You could look at them and say, oh, they belong to this family or that family. There was one school when I was a child. There are 31 schools in Tecate now, elementary schools. The city has transformed partly through industry. We used to be the grape-growing capital of Baja before Valle de Guadalupe. As the water table became depleted, grape growing moved to Valle de Guadalupe. But my mother still remembers when they used to pack the grapes in sawdust to send them to Mexico City from Tecate. There was also the tax-free incentivized zone that encouraged maquiladoras to come to Tecate, and the massive amount of industrialization with no money for local infrastructure created exactly the same conditions that Juan Carlos spoke about. So less than 50% of the sewage that is generated in Tecate is treated by the water treatment plant. It was scaled for a city of 70,000. Tecate is a city of 125,000 now. And there's a lot of discharges from industry as well. So our wells have become contaminated. Our incredibly beautiful, mineral-rich, life-giving water that the guests used to drink as part of their regime, those wells are now closed. So we started a big campaign. Rancho La Puerta started flexing its muscle very strongly in the local community in the 1990s as growth outpaced infrastructure and urban development. And one of the areas we focused on was water. We worked very closely with the local community to begin to develop an entirely new vision for what the river could be. We've done trash cleanups.
Yeah, I was going to interrupt you real quick. You know, we only have about 20 minutes, and in our conversations, which last a lot longer, there were so many different things that you were working on. So I want to stress that what we're going to really focus on in this part of the presentation is just water. But water is so elemental, as you said, to the services that you were providing to begin with.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about how you got involved in water.
Yeah. So as the area grew and drew on water from the Colorado River, that was part of what was the boost. Sometimes limitations are blessings. Tecate grew much more slowly. When Colorado River water came to Tijuana, then Tecate also received water from the Colorado River. So I wanted to say something about limitations being blessings in relation to design before we dive completely into the theme of water. So we built with all local materials. We started doing that out of necessity. Local brick, local roof tile, floor tiles, and stone. It established the vernacular and the feeling of the village that people love when they come to the ranch. So those beautiful slides that you saw were really the design language was created by local materials. We did not have a lot of choices, and in a way, that was a real blessing. So what we did in relation to water, in 1999, there was a plan to channel the Tecate River in cement. And we began a big campaign. We worked with universities, with all of the local municipal authorities, with the state authorities, and we were able to transform the way the city saw the river. And we did it through the children as well. We did this in the town square for 5 years with thousands and thousands of children. They painted their vision of what the Tecate River could be, what it could become. It was part of how we started doing the voluntary river cleanups along 7 miles of urban river. And it was that vision that allowed us to create an entirely new master planning process for the Tecate River. It was not channeled in cement. Instead, it was seen as the green lungs of the community. It was seen as something that could connect people with recreation. And we created so many partnerships, primarily with government entities and community groups. We didn't have much private enterprise supporting us at that time. But now, in Tecate today, there's a much more cohesive understanding of the value of the river, and we're actually working with a very diverse array of people. We no longer have to lead the campaign or lead the charge. It's actually being implemented in a big way by the city planning department, by the state and federal government, and by a number of consulting organizations and many citizens groups that have all been consulted along these 7 miles of urban river. So all of these things are happening in Tecate. It's taken 20 years to get there, and it has not been easy, and there have been setbacks, but holding the vision, like, that's something I just, in the face of all of this relentlessly distressing information, which is real and has to motivate us, there need to be people who can hold the vision.
So talk a little bit about your need for water, the community's need for water, and the interaction between the two and the solutions that you started to bring to table.
So we're seeing over-allocation of Colorado River water, which is both our potable water and also, since we had to start closing our wells, a lot of our irrigation water. And the gardens are intrinsic to the ranch experience. So as the main garden designer, I was terrified looking into a future where we might not have an aquifer, not be able to use our water. The cost of potable water in our area is incredibly expensive because it does come from the Colorado River, and it's pumped 4,500 feet up and over the mountains. So we are spending a lot of money, almost $500,000 on potable water, most of which is used for irrigation now. And so this led us to look for a solution to be able to recycle our wastewater to a very high degree. And in order to do that, Eric, would you stand up? I found this remarkable water wizard. This is Requilibrium. And this man and his team truly do heal water. So we developed a small pilot plant. This is treating the water from 500 families. It's the precursor. Please stay on this slide for a minute so that I can explain it before you go on. It's the precursor to a very large water treatment plant that we have been building the last couple of years that will be able to provide 480 gallons per minute of clean water that meets California Title 22 standards for irrigation water with human contact or tertiary treatment with disinfection. And this water is a much better quality than the water from the Colorado River that we're receiving at the front end. The technology is passive, biological, net zero energy use, and no waste. And that is a remarkable thing. The cost of building it is similar to the cost of a conventional aerobic plant, but the cost of maintaining and operating it is just a tiny fraction. So very, very quickly, this pencils out remarkably well. And we now have been operating this plant since March of 2023. And it has been meeting its standards all along. It's also, for me, pretty miraculous, which is why I designed the pump house to look like a chapel, because we are turning shit into incredibly clear, beautiful water for our gardens.
I'm not going to ask about the comparison. Next slide.
So this is a little bit about how it works. The water comes in at that upper right-hand corner, those cells that look like bee honeycomb. Those are the anaerobic biodigesters, and all of the microorganisms that do the work there are the same as the methanogenic microorganisms in our gut. They were the very first life on this planet, long before bacteria evolved. They create methane, much as we create methane. And that methane is scrubbed and cleaned and becomes biogas. This part of the plant manages 65% of the cleaning process. It's where all of the solids are digested and dealt with. There's a small amount of sludge that accumulates at the bottom, and that sludge can be used together with the cuttings from the wetland to make compost. In an aerobic plant, usually there's a lot of sludge generated, and it's very costly to manage the waste product that comes from an aerobic conventional water treatment plant. So quickly, the next amazing thing are the wetlands. And the wetlands are the magic of biology, the magic of the bacteria that's associated with the roots of the plant that create a massive filter. The water, when it comes into the wetland, is still a little bit cloudy and a little bit smelly. When it comes out of the wetland, it is clear and there is no smell at all. And it already surpasses the standard NOM 003 for Mexico, which is the standard for discharge into any body of water. So coming out of the wetland, just this part, which is completely passive, requires no energy, the water already meets Mexican standards. So without the tertiary disinfection, which is the more sophisticated technological part of this, this is an excellent model for any small-scale development where you're going to use the water for irrigation and not maybe use it intimately around a patio or having people sitting on the grass, or you're going to discharge the water back into the water table and reuse it.
I want to add, my understanding is what we saw, the photo and this drawing is of a small plant that you built, but there's currently an even larger plant that's based on this exact model.
Yes, there is. And I will just say one more thing. The methane that this generates is biogas. So the other waste product is the biogas, which can be turned into electricity to run the meter backwards. With the big plant, we're planning to use it to heat our pools and the women's spa.
So I want to move from the technology, which and microorganisms, to how we're working with the community and the people around water and engaging them in this entire process and the transformation.
So nearly 50 years ago, we established Fundación La Puerta. And this is something that I think is, it was brought up this morning, and it's one of the things we do really well, which is be in partnership with our local community. We have 500 employees, that's 500 families, that pretty much let us know what is needed in the community and our strongest supporters. In 1979, we built a beautiful park which serves as the main venue for activities where we connect people, nature, and culture. We have massive cultural events there, like our Day of the Dead celebration. We had 12,000 people attend that. People came from Ensenada, Tijuana, all around. But most of what we do is education with children and families. This is our environmental education center. It's meant to look and feel like a cave. It's remarkable when you go inside. There's mosaic and stained glass, but you feel like a burrowing animal going into the coolness of the earth in the summertime. And the children really learn about water. They learn about soil. They learn about the waste stream, what a watershed is, trees. We do a lot of tree planting programs. Climate change, mitigating climate change, and the older children learn a lot about personal responsibility. We have a youth volunteer and leadership program, and it's in its second generation. And the youth volunteers now are movers and shakers in the community, and they have children in our programming. And that's been a wonderful thing to see.
Tell me about Olimpiaguas.
Olimpiaguas. It's a contraction of Olympics and water. 20 years ago, we started doing this wonderful activity with Cespete. Cespete is the state authority in charge of the water infrastructure. And so we do this hand in hand with them. This just happened a week ago, exactly a week ago. There were 1,200 children.
All right, 1,200 children.
Yeah, 1,200 sixth graders in the park. They look forward to it. When they get to 6th grade, they know they get to come. There were 30 educational stations. They're set up like games. Actually, Requilibrium, Eric's team, had a station that was wonderful there.
And these are businesses that are coming in or other partners?
Yes, a whole variety, a number of government-related partners. And I think most of the main players and actors connected to water in the whole region have a presence there. And the Secretary for Water was there, the town, our city mayor was there, but many levels of civil society and authority, and the joy of teaching children how to care for this precious resource.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I mean, if you've been doing this for 20 years and 1,200 kids, what do you see as the impact, the generational impact you've had on the community in relationship to their understanding of water?
Yeah, so there are a couple of levels to answer that. One of them is that we teach these children how to wash your car, how to wash your dishes, how to minimize the water you use in a shower. Like there are flashcards and they'll flash bathtub and the kids say bad and they flash shower and the kids say good and it goes on the right side of the board. And so they learn the important but small things that you can do in your household. And they're the ones who become the policemen for their parents. That's one of the amazing things, is that the kids teach the parents. We've seen that happen. So the learning goes both ways. The other thing that happens in our area, because we work so deeply with a relationship to the natural ecosystem, they understand that our ecosystem is one that's adapted to water scarcity. And there's kind of a conscientiousness about that. Like you just wouldn't wash your car and leave the hose running. And we had to teach all of these people that moved to Tecate in the 80s and 90s who didn't grow up there and didn't belong there, not to set their trash, not to burn their trash under a tree and start a big wildfire. So it's sort of like deepening into a sense of belonging and a sense of care. So these children then become the generation above them, really become the ones who carry this message forward into their communities as adults. So we have many Tecate Verde citizen groups that operate in our area. The citizens clean up the river. When we do these river cleanups, we show up with our volunteers, about 40 people, and 200 people join us. So it's creating that culture of water is the point of Olimpiaguas. It's the point of a lot of our education.
So I'm getting the let's bring it to a close sign. So I wanted to give you a chance to kind of address this last slide and really wrap up, what is so special about the place? How does it connect to water? And, a message out to this community related to their role, as I said earlier, to protect the resources that sustain life here as well.
Well, I have to say that what Juan Carlos spoke about, we lived. We've been through it. We watched Tijuana, Tecate, our region, explode. We watched our aquifer be completely depleted. So we have been in the process of regeneration and mitigation. We've been at the far end of the arc that you're in the middle of here, or the people in Los Cabos have already experienced that full arc. So as we live into it, I think Rancho La Puerta gets to innovate and experiment with new solutions and models such as Requilibrium's water treatment plant. And that being the carrier of the vision, that sometimes less is more, less dense development, slower development, more conscientious, really listening, going to the deep place rather than the quick and easy surface riffles of the trends that are out there and the markets that are out there. It has truly paid off in our case. And being a pioneer is not easy. The permitting process for the plant and the large plant was horrendous. But to hold on to the vision, to know what we were aiming for, to be certain because we tried it on a small scale and it worked. It's like, I think that's the role of private enterprise. When government doesn't have the resources to do it, we need to do it.
Well, Sarah, thank you for your pioneering, your just constant effort to reach these new heights, because it definitely shows in the quality of the work that you do and the love that you show in what you do. So
Thank you.
on behalf of everybody, I want to invite everybody to go to Rancho La Puerta and visit it, and let's give Sarah a big hand.